Welcome back to another torch review. I have quite an interesting one in today. It's the Klarus G35 and this was sent in via a company called TheNines B&T. They're a seller of torches. We'll run through the box just to have a look at some of the specs. You can see this is very much aimed at a long range torch with a lot of throw. And on the bottom we can see we have some of the listings for the power outputs. We have 4 power levels, 2 strobe modes. Bear in mind those run times are listed with the higher capacity lithium cells. You can get the torch with or without batteries. I have the pack with the batteries, so I will be testing them a bit later on. This is what you get included in the kit. You get a decent quality hand strap, Klarus branded, and you have an adjuster in the middle. Similar to other makers' torches, but it's quite a nice strap to have included. Spare O-ring. We also have a bendy type USB LED light. It's sort of a bonus item. Just plug that into a power bank to show you. Handy little light. You can use that in the car or perhaps down the shed. Now looking at the torch, this is a very nicely made model. Nice anodizing, tough finish on this. You also have a lot of grip, nice knurling on the body section too. Although it's going to have a bit more heft due to the 3 batteries that it takes. It is very nicely designed. They've also added flat edges to it as well, so it stops it rolling. Around the head section you'll be able to see there quite a deep heatsink included, and they have a side switch flat button on this, so it's kind of level with the outer area. Onto the LED, an XHP35 HI D4, and look at that reflector, very deep, and notice the flat area around the LED. Now onto the base or tail switch. I have one included here, so you have 2 switches on this particular torch. I'm just showing you now the base cap, taking that off. You have a configuration of 2 positive down and 1 positive up, and that base cap section rotates around once the lugs are in place. Let's take the batteries out. You'll be able to see the contact points inside. You've also cut out sections for the battery. You can see round the ring it's also greased up, and you do have the markings on labels inside. There is a red one there, and I'll explain that shortly. Now the 3 batteries that I got were rated to 2600 milliamps an hour, and they have their own micro USB charging port on each battery. A quick look through the manual. This basically repeats the spec that you've seen on the box, but it goes through the operation as well. And this is a strong point of the Klarus. They've really covered quite a lot of areas with the interface and the operation of the torch. You can also run this on a single battery as well. So if you're stuck, you need a spare battery, you can just use a single one to power it. Obviously at reduced power output. You have lockout, 1 touch turbo, a 1 touch low as well, and this just covers your warranty period. Klarus are pretty much in line with other makers on their warranty. Now let's put some flat top cells. You can use the flat tops in the torch, but I would recommend that you use the spacers, the magnetic spacers, just to get the contact. You might find that 1 or 2 cells don't contact, but it does work okay. The flat top cells tend to be a little bit shorter than the protected ones. Just go through the user interface, very straightforward. A single press for on, and then single presses again to cycle through the power mode, and the back switch or the base switch does exactly the same. Long press to turn off, and when you push it on you'll be able to see that the power indicator comes on to let you know the battery level. That's 4 stages. You have an instant turbo, so you just push and hold, and as long as you hold it in, the turbo mode will come on, and that's in all power levels including off. Showing you on the base cap too. And if you want the instant low, just single press on the base switch. The strobe mode is double press, and then you can double press again to go through the SOS mode, which we'll show you later. And you have 2 button presses for the lockout, and you'll see the light come on there telling you it's locked out. To get out of that, you need to triple press any button and it will start operating normally. That's a really nice feature and very much needed on a torch like this, I think. So as far as the fit, finish and user interface goes, I'm very happy with this. If you headstand it, you'll be able to see if you've left the torch on. But if you base stand it, it's also pretty stable, but for some reason there's just a little bit of extra play. The switch sticks out slightly. An extra millimetre around the edge or a slightly lower profile switch would have stopped that wobbling. It's still not going to fall over, it's not a major issue, but it's something that I did notice. And looking at the cells, they are slightly longer than the normal protected ones, probably due to the micro USB port. So I measured them at around about 7 centimeters in length. That's a couple of millimeters extra. When you plug these in to charge, you'll see the red light come on. These are the speeds that I was getting, around about 0.8, 0.77 of an amp for charging. We'll have a look at the charge termination later. And our single cell, this has a special feature where it adjusts its power output so it avoids tripping the protection circuit. So it's not going to try and get that 2000 lumens with one cell, which it won't be able to manage. Once you put it into the turbo, if it can't get the full power out of the cell, it will actually just test it there and you won't trip the cell. I put a poor quality cell in. I wouldn't recommend using these. I'm going to do a test on these shortly, but even that managed to fire it at the turbo mode. Again, the output is reduced, but that is a nice little feature where you don't actually have to take the battery out because you've tripped the protection circuit. Just a quick demonstration on the anti-roll design. And the battery tests, they all came in above the 2600 milliamps an hour, so that was a good result. And once the charging is finished, it will turn to blue, the LED. I was getting around about 4.17 volts termination on these cells, so good termination. I do like the 4-level battery indicator. It goes from green, orange, then to red, and red flashing, so that's going to give you a good idea of your remaining power left. That's a nice feature. Not many makers have a 3-stage, or some have a 3-stage, not many have a 4-stage. Waterproof test, no problems with that at all. So what I'm going to do now is run some extensive beam shots outside to give you a good idea on the torch, and we'll come back with a summary and conclusion. wrap up with a few thoughts on the Klarus G35. I was quite keen to try this model. It looked very interesting, and thankfully in most areas it's an impressive torch in use. There's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, yes, it is a bit of an animal, particularly at the turbo setting, and it can hold that setting for quite a decent amount of time with the temperature control. And when you focus that amount of power into a small beam pattern, you're going to get big range out of the torch, but the spill spreads out quite nicely at the high and turbo settings too. But I liked the interface. They thought about everything on that one. You have instant access to turbo and low, you have the 4-stage power indicator, and you have the lockout mode too. There's a couple of small points for me. Slight wobble on the base when standing. Slight modification to the design would fix that, and you don't have the in-torch charging, and that's something which some people might like to have. The micro USB ports do help get around that on the battery a bit, but you'll have to charge them individually. But overall though, I'm pretty impressed with this one. If you've used the Klarus, do let me know what you think about it. I like this torch. It's definitely one of the more impressive throwers that I've tested recently.